League video out. It's a sort of a separate category for me. I'm involved with this league, and these guys are just so smart and so good. You want to play the best players in the world at Europe 1940 or Global 1940. It is here, um, and I've interviewed some of these guys, and have plans to interview some more. So I just wanted to bring up this discussion about AA guns. I think it started on the previous page. And so I thought I'd just bring this up to you. So they're talking about adjusting the rules of some costs for something called balance mode, which is their favorite way to play. And I just want to get down to the AAs. I'm not interested. Well, I am a little interested, but um, they're talking about changing fighters and tax and costs and things like that. And that's why I chimed in at the end, and I think it's a valuable chime in myself. I like the idea of adjusting those, but I don't think it's a good solution on account of the translatableness. Um, Surfer says, while we're at it, I think AA should also get a tweak, either 4 shots or a reduced cost to 3 or 4, possibly both. It appears that the cost of an AA unit was set to 5, so that after buying 2 AA guns, one would likely kill 1 fighter. If attacked by 6 fighters, the battle would be a wash to UV, but that does not account for the rapid movement of fighters versus AA, so that one almost never buys AA. Increasingly, their lethality would make for more tactical unit buys on defense, especially in the late game where everyone seems to rely on massive air fleets to dominate a region. Um, Agree with you, says Amin Sewell. We need a fast BM upgrade, let's say 4.2. And for some future upgrade, we can prepare 5.0 with time and discussion of how 4.2 is doing in practice. Very good, says Amin Mool. A good post. I forgot them too. People, mass, cheap fighters, and we definitely need more AA guns. Something must be done. They need to be more effective, shooting 4 planes or cheaper 3 IPCs or both. Maybe keep the same price or raising to 6 fighters, but each 1 to 2 is a hit, or is it too radical? Barney says, one thing I considered trying was to lower cost to 4, still have 3 shots, but only 1 shot counts. Even if you get more than 1 hit, would give you a 50% chance of whacking a $9 or $10 fighter if 3 attack, but limit totaling dicing someone's air force. I have never actually tested it. I did test lowering it to 4 and only got 2 shots. That seemed to work okay, as it's still a hit point. Anyway, just a couple of thoughts. Gamerman gets in. This one I can answer with certainty. AA was set at 6 for G40, which I think was the same as AA50. While Larry was asking players for input in G40 before finalizing it, I argued for AA being cheaper. If I said anything lower than 5, it most likely would have been rejected as too big of a change. I petitioned to 5, and Larry actually agreed with me. That is my lame claim to fame. I don't think that's lame at all, Gamerman. AA merit is a big discussion, but I just have to counter you a little bit. Don't compare TUV of AA with fighter, as all know. The attacker does not know how many planes will be shot down at the beginning of the battle and never able to roll a dice. AA can absolutely be devastating. It's hard to put a price on it. Some will try to quantify by comparing average odds of TUV change between infantry and AA for defense. It's not that simple. I'll just stop there with an argument. Finally, AA has the unique ability to screw up a hit and run. You can save the AA until last, so hit and run can really go wrong and could even wreck the game in the case of Germany versus Russia battle. You just can't quantify that. I buy AA 5 and not that rarely. If it were 4, I would go crazy. Gamerman continues. I want to say fighters. Okay, I'm not interested in the fighter comments. It would certainly nerf certain units, and I think changing the values helps make the game into more of a rock, paper, scissors decision rather than always picking rock. Definitely, currently, optimal buys involve infantry, fighters, destroyers, Cruisers, aircraft carriers, mechs, and tanks are a good offensive punch. I see small value in AA and none for cruisers, battleships relative to the main units. My point is that why have the other units? Or are they underpowered relative to cost? By changing value, you can bring in more of a mix of units, which changes strategies, add to that differences in goals for different countries. In my humble opinion, you have a richer game experience. By the way, I would include here that, for instance, with some of these, if you had tech, they would be tech trees. So, for instance, battleships having anti-aircraft guns on them as a tech tree actually, of course, makes it more relevant to buy those. Or cruisers having a anti-aircraft factor would change the cruiser buying experience. Love your post, Surfer. FWIW. Don't know what that means. As to why have the other units, here's a thought. They are to start the game with, not to be replaced. During the war, it was found that the carriers and fighters were much more powerful than battleships and cruisers. I like that comment. However, they did build additional cruisers and battleships. There are many cruisers and battleships at Game Start that are played with for potential mini rounds. Do not assume that everyone agrees with the premise that all units should be bought somewhat proportionally throughout the game. In other words, the carriers progressively make battleships obsolete. That's kind of cool. Author Bomber Harris says, "We want historical accuracy. If we want, we would have more battleships and cruisers still built in the game." Here are the splits for the U.S. Navy. Oh wow, he goes into it. I'm gonna pause for just a minute, guys. My wife's arrived home from work, and I gotta go give her a kiss. All right, so this gets really interesting. By the end of World War II, the U.S. Navy was by far the largest, most powerful navy in the world, with 7,601 ships, including 28 aircraft carriers, 23 battleships. So see right there, 71 escort carriers, 72 cruisers. So by the way, if you combine the escort carriers and carriers, that's 28 and 71. So yes, actually, that puts us at 99 versus 23 battleships, 72 cruisers, so that's significant. Over 232 subs, 377 destroyers, thousands of amphibious supplies, and auxiliary ships. Translating into Axis analysts would have roughly similar spend turn. We would have roughly similar spend turn on battleships, cruisers, subs, destroyers, and a bit disproportionately high spending on carriers. In terms of practical proposal, I would have cruisers cost 10, battleships 17. Willing to get feedback if those numbers are attractive. Thank you very much. As we all know, we like some historical accuracy, but not too much. That line is decided by game designers, and we all like to speculate. And I'm a playtester, so maybe I have a little bit more input in there. So the interesting data, the destroyer would be 7. So we have more. That would be interesting. I agree with that. But like I said, like I'll say at the end, the cruisers should be cheaper and have some anti-submarine capability, and the battleship's cheaper than 20. So just like you said, okay, I don't want to get into the other stuff much as I like this stuff. Farm Boy is awesome. I am not opposed to the changes proposed around cruisers and battleships, but I'm curious about how the game plays with more of them on the board. Although I'm not sure what the price point is that makes them more common. Air has the advantage of being relevant to both land and sea, whereas Navy has very limited relevance to land. Although I suppose that is also an argument that changes the relative pricing of naval units relative to air, and at least with BM, the Marine unit mitigates that somewhat. But for air, while I'm not opposed to buying something, I'm more hesitant about reversing the relative costs of FIGs and bombers. Tax FIGs are definitely the most common buy, but unlike naval purchases, I do see all 3 bought regularly. And I think because FIGs are defensive units and tax and bombers are offensive, there is some logic to the current relative costs. The Axis need to play offensively, and in my experience, they are consequently more likely to buy tanks and bombers. And the Allies need to play defensively for much of the game, so primarily buy FIGs until the late game if they have managed to go on the offensive. So making offensive units more expensive does help mitigate against the Axis advantage, and changing it the other way might impact game balance to the benefit of the Axis. Okay, but here's the more relevant discussion. Like I said, if you want to get involved with this. So this is where I think it gets to the point. In my opinion, AA is underestimated by many players. AA is a good deterrent to hit and run for at least two reasons. And hit and run is huge. If you haven't done hit and run skirmish battles, that it takes your game to the next level, I think. It has taken my game to the next level, I think. AA is a good deterrent to hit and run for at least two reasons. Don't take it as a casualty, and when only AA is remaining, the enemy cannot retreat, which with AA you can smash planes to the ground in a hit and run, whereas infantry only cannot, because the attacker can take off only cheapest units and most likely lose no air. In addition, the unpredictability of taking out air before the first round of attack can wreck an attack, and if the attacker understands this, it is a deterrent. I actually have that situation in the game right now. Prospect of taking AA hits immediately threatens defensive fleet if fighters are lost. I also lost a big game not long ago where one big factor was losing 2 to 3 Russian planes in big stack attack versus Germany. Without AA, it would have been a much safer hit and run. AA is subtle and nuanced. The battle calculator shows you the average, so it's very misleading when AA is involved. It seems more of us want a less dicey game than a more dicey game. It makes AA cost only 4, and the game would be much more dicey. Now, the dicey part, realize that is the. I think the dicey part makes the game more realistic, and as some sort of, let me use the word courage here. And if you get orders from your general to go into a battle, um, the battle proceeds. Particularly Axis were that way, and Russia was that way, where you went in and you were told to attack. You were not actually, when you're playing this game, you're not actually the Hitler. You're actually the Rundstad, or you're the Rommel. You're being told what to do, and there's a distance between you and your decisions. And dice simulates that. And I know that we have a lot of posts on the same topic, and they're in the lead discussion thread. But it's about modifying the game like BM and PTV, which represents a majority of league played. So if no protest, I'm good with keeping all this here. Have a great day, guys. I also like to explicitly state that I, for one, do not expect that this fun discussion will pressure any changes in BM or PTV whatsoever. But if those teams would like to tweak this creation, then super. Farm Boy, I think I know the big game of which you speak, and I agree that AA is underrated. I'll add that in large battles, even with the battle calculator average, adding AA, as long as they would be able to roll a die, is comparable to buying FIGs in terms of its impact. But since so many smaller attacks involve small numbers of land units supported by several air, having one AA in the mix really complicates the choice for the attacker. That single AA in Caroline has probably won some games for Japan. Hey, so when you're doing the battle calculator, take out the AA gun and substitute infantry. AA is not correctly calculated by the battle calc. I have played around with that and increased the AA guns to little effect. And I guarantee the battle calculator is not calculating the AA gun correctly. So that is, and I totally agree that it's much larger than this, but it's such an X factor that I would say it's an X factor with an X to the power. Hello, Martin. Can you please remind me of the rules and how you play the same opponent? Okay, so he says that. Amansul says, other boosting, instead of lowering the cost or increasing the number of planes you can hit of an AA, could be moving moving at 2 moves, like mechanized AA gun, maybe with a cost of 6, shooting at planes that fly over the territory. Yes, regardless if they're attacking, especially in CM combat movement. I think. I think that even if they stay at 5, it's okay since you guys brought some good reasons for it. And my opponent in the last game told me after the game finished that until that game of ours, he didn't realize the importance of AA guns. He more or less thought they were of small benefit. P.S. I moved all AA guns from UK and USA to Europe, bidded 3 AA guns with UK Pacific, and brought those from India forward, and brought several with UK into the Middle East. Very good. Anzac AA guns were doing trouble to Japan too in the islands. So they can be tricky, I agree. What about transports? We don't mention those. Any corrections? Agreed. Nice reading. Another 2 cents. Eponymous balancing has been aiming to between X and L, axis and allies more than between unit costs, independent of bidding. Between gameplay and historicity, I'm favoring the former. I like playing a strategic board game and only accepting the World War theme. Okay. Don't know if I made a point, but I've arrived at the office. So he's actually saying he prefers gameplay, and that's what Larry has to deal with. I'm more on the. No, he's favoring the former, which is historicity. Oh, no, I think he meant the latter because he's saying he likes strategic board gaming. I am on the World War II theme, so I'm going to disagree with Pacifier Board. Just one more comment about AA guns. Seems to me that the greater level of player, the greater use of the AA guns. Best players tend to avoid risky battles, not just big ones, but small ones too, and achieve victory over strategic dominance, and thus avoiding the dice-related cases in which luck can prevail on the opponent's side. That said, in games among very good players, and I think that the general level of play on this forum is really big and growing, AA gun costs of 5 IPCs isn't that much expensive. Isn't that much expensive? I would agree. As for the side thing, since allies use AA guns more, a change that perspective would lean more to their side. But since they are bidding already, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea. Like the negative impact on the allies of making fighters expensive and tax cheaper, about which Farm Boy has spoken. Just one note on this great post. I think we all agree that it's normal that we buy more subs and DDs than cruisers and battleships. But it is normal that my opponent and I played 18 rounds and we buy 0 cruisers and battleships. I think it isn't. It just happened in my latest game. So this is my comment. For my 2 cents as a person who is a grinder, not a champion, but a playtester and an allies advocate, I say I don't mess with the unit costs. Normalize tech. I completely agree about AA guns. Love them. They fail me so many times, but once in a while, tech would do the same. It would make the game much more interesting, more historical. Every one of those tech options and more were in the war by 45, and the enemy never alerted you of the change either. Completely shocking and horrific, but immersive. I am talking to people who care about the W. I like to win, but care about fixing and flavoring the game more, and passing it on to future generations. It is a good hobby, good for the soul character. So I believe the game that this group plays ought to be as close to Autobox as possible with a bid and encouraging tech. I think that you are brilliant gentlemen. I think that you brilliant gentlemen can, by including tech, a real gap in Larry's masterpiece that needs to be filled. Take this game to new heights, new metas. Larry didn't know what a meta was. I think I piqued his interest, describing the tendency to go with KJF these days and the larger bids. So that's what I wanted to say. I love the discussion about AA guns. I do believe that, I could see doing this. I've only dipped my toe in the balance mode a couple times. I didn't care for it because, like I said, I want what I call translatableness. I want the guy who buys the game out of box. He goes home from the store or from Amazon, delivers, the UPS guy delivers from Amazon. He cracks it open, gets started on the game, and then he comes to Access Now. He wants to play with the best people in the world, and he can't because the game is too different. He thinks he's good. We don't play games we're not good at. So he thinks he's good. He plays this board game, and then he doesn't come back. And I didn't come back. I kind of got stuffed. I came here in 2009 and didn't return because, um, here I was, a young father with eventually seven kids, and I got told by someone on this forum, you got to want it. Um, and that was not the message I needed to hear, because that sent me away from the forum for years. I finally came back when I decided I was going to um, Grasshoppers tournament. So I would say the league right here, this league and the play board games, the gap between these two ought to shrink. Okay, these guys right here need to be brought into the fold. And then, in addition to that, these guys, the ones that are going on Steam and playing 42, they ought to be brought into the fold too. The guys that are here playing on 42, and that's what I'm trying to do, trying to build up the community. Access Now as online, and we all, I think, ought to be able to translate and go from game to game to game. It's a good hobby. I am a devotee of the Larry Harris canon and also the Game Master series and Catan. But that's about it, except for games I play with my wife and my kids, like Seven Wonders and Ticket to Ride. So anyways, guys, thought I'd make this video. Might be helpful. Comments below, please. But that's what I'm trying to do with our league, is make it translatable. These guys, and let's see if it'll pull up. Then I close it out. And these guys. Okay? We need to be mentors and bridge the gap between us all. And the Amazon guy, the guy just picks up the package. All right, crack it out.